I want to have another pass across these questions about values, particularly human values and morality, and something to do with what Gary's been referring to as efficiency, perhaps related to utilitarianism, or utility more broadly. I think there's some, I'm getting some slippage in my understanding of these terms really. So let me just see if I can put some definitions together for myself. I mean, firstly, this idea of value. To value something, you have to have criteria for measuring that value. So something like a human value, the criteria for measuring human value might be something like a reduction in the amount of human suffering, which might be different to a kind of absolute value for all life forms, which might be a reduction in the amount of total suffering that all life forms can experience. Now, they're not going to be the same thing. If your focus is upon suffering as an absolute concept, then you are going to end up having to, probably exterminate a lot of humans, because we probably cause more suffering than we ever have inflicted upon ourselves. So, so there's something to do there about values based on criteria to do with suffering as opposed to human suffering. I think there's also the kind of where we get those values from. I mean, I'm assuming that everybody thinks that suffering is a bad thing. That's I assume is the case. But we wouldn't know it was a bad thing unless, it takes its meaning from the experiences which characterize it. So we only understand the idea of bad things because they characterize suffering. I mean, it's almost as if the arrows of definition are pointing in the wrong direction. It's not that the suffering is inherently bad, and that sounds like I'm being relativistic about that, so I'm going to try and qualify that. But it's not that suffering is inherently bad, it's that the word bad and the understanding of what bad things are take their meaning from experiences like suffering. I mean, if I never suffered, if I was incapable of suffering, if I didn't have any pain receptors, my understanding of what a negative stimulus, what a bad feeling was, would be meaningless. I wouldn't have any concept of the word bad in that sense. So my understanding of negative emotional and negative physical experiences, badness, comes from my experience of suffering. So what does that mean? Well, I suppose that means that if I try to be absolutist about that and say that suffering in and of itself is bad, without qualifying it by referring to what is suffering or who's suffering, then I'm kind of doing a bit of a disservice to the understanding of the term, I think. I would have to say, the suffering defines badness, and the particular kind of badness that we are interested in as human beings is the bad things that happen to human beings. Now, it might be completely altruistic in some weird way and decide artificially that we want to favour the suffering of animals, or favour the well-being of animals over the suffering of humans. Or we might want to do one of those calculations where you add up all the suffering that's taking place and do the calculation to maximise something like efficiency. I don't know, or some to minimise the crapness of it, I suppose. But that would require human suffering. That would require probably increasing the total amount of human suffering. I can't see any way around that really. And as an atheist, I think there's a problem there. I mean, it seems a bit odd bringing atheism in, but I guess I'm just reminded of these recent videos that's been made, something about Jesus Freak defending, I can't remember his name now, the episode between Abraham and his son in the Bible, where he goes to kill his son because God told him to, and then God changes his mind. And something about Jesus Freak had said that if God told him to kill his son, he would do it. And of course everyone's appalled at that. That's a stupid Christian thing to do. How misguided you can be. It seems hypocritical to say that on the one hand, making that the idea that someone like Jesus Freak would obey a higher authority like God and kill his son on the commands of that higher authority, it seems to be critical we would say that, and simultaneously say, we have this higher authority called the sum total of universal suffering, and because we have that authority, we have to effectively reduce the number of human beings in the world. We have to either kill some, or sterilise some, or forbid some from having children, or do whatever it takes. It feels like they're very closely related, those ideas. So I don't really like the idea of human chauvinism. I mean, I think in some of these videos and some of the comments I'm being characterised as a kind of apologist for, I don't know, some kind of woolly humanism. And maybe I am, I don't know, but I guess I'm just trying to recognise the fact that we draw our morality, with a small m, I'm not talking about big moralities, we draw our day-to-day morality from the experience from human experience, and then attribute it, thank God, to animals. I mean, and that's a relatively recent ability that we've been able to do that. I mean, I think until very recently we've just assumed that animals were automata that didn't have human feelings, or didn't have feelings that were even remotely like ours. And it's only we're only, to the extent that we are kind to animals, which isn't very much, we're only able to do that because we kind of project human values onto them. And in fact, the only way we seem to be able to take care of the planet right now is by pretending it's a big kind of Gaia mother thing. Again, projecting a human value onto an inert object. I suppose so I'm not really arguing for human values as some kind of absolute thing. I guess I'm just saying that's the mechanism that we come in with. That's the device that we have. We have devices like empathy. We have devices, mechanisms for mobilizing moral behavior. We seem to have those things built into us, whether we like it or not, but they're probably better than nothing at all. And certainly calculation doesn't seem to be an effective substitute, because, as I say, it would almost certainly result in some quite terrifying regimes of cruelty in order to perform that necessary calculation. That doesn't sound very coherent, but that's all I'm up to with that so far. Thanks.